So, welcome to Where to Begin to Heal Your Parent-Child Relationship. I am Rebecca Thompson Hitt, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project. And I am really happy that you are here. I'm happy that you made the time in this space today on this Monday. It is a holiday in the US. So that you made time to come and be with us and to learn a little something that you can take with you to support your beginning stages of healing your relationship with your child. So I want to just begin by saying that wherever you are in this process, in this journey of parenting, of however old your children are, whether you are wanting to have children even and you want to have a good relationship with them, or whether you're currently struggling with something, whether your struggle is big, whether your struggle is small, whether you had a really rough day or whether you're having a really great day, you are welcome exactly as you are, wherever you are right now. And so I just wanted to begin there to really let you know, parenting is one of those journeys that some days are great, we're on top of the moon, and some days we're just not. And so I just want to welcome the full range of wherever you might be. So we're going to be spending some time together today, but I wanted to let you know that you are in the right place. If you have some situations right now that are happening that don't feel good for you with your kids, however old they are, and you would like to find a way to stay connected or to reconnect. Maybe there's sticky parts in your day that just aren't feeling good. Maybe it's those transitions that are really hard for you or for your kids. Maybe there's a lot of things in your relationship right now that are hard. Maybe you've already tried a lot of things that haven't worked. Maybe you've come here wanting more ease and joy and even fun in your relationship. And you're in the right place if you have a baby, if you're expecting, if you have a young child, a teenager, young adult. And you're in the right place if you're not perfect and you don't respond well to every situation that happens with your kids in the way that you want to, and you want non-judgmental support. So if any of those apply to you, welcome. I'm really, really glad you found us. So what we're going to be learning today is how to repair the small disconnections that happen in everyday life. And this is really the foundation for the big stuff. This is the same work that I do with my clients, helping them to have those foundational skills so that they can come back into connection when the big things do happen. And sometimes I know some of you are dealing with bigger things, and we're going to be talking about that in a little bit too. But these foundational skills matter for that. We're going to be talking about how to make room for your feelings and in addition to your child's, and why that matters so much. And then how to stop being engulfed by your own feelings so you can show up as your best self in parenting. So we're going to be talking a little bit about getting beyond the stories of what your child's response means and being able to focus on what it means for them, what it might be happening for them. And then why learning to really, really listen is your superpower for healing relationships, and what gets in the way of doing that well. So I'm going to be sharing my Brain Stoplight tool, which is something that I've been using for the last about 13 years, and it will help give you concrete steps on your healing journey with your family and on with your child. So why does learning this matter? So really, and I've said this before just a minute ago, if you can learn how to repair the little disconnections that happen, the little R's, then you can prevent the bigger disconnections, the big R's. And then you also have the skills that you need to learn to heal the big repairs. This is daily life skills that most of us didn't get when we were growing up. So why listen to me? Who am I? So like I said, I'm Rebecca Thompson Hitt. I am the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project. Consciously Parenting is based in the US, and it has been in existence supporting parents internationally now for 15 years. I use a unique lens of prenatal and perinatal somatic psychology, which means that I look underneath the layers of things that we typically look at in terms of behavior and look and see what's underneath that, what's happening in the physiology, what's happening in the story of the body. So it isn't just about, okay, well, your child did this, we need this consequence. Because if you have a child who doesn't follow along with that idea, that don't respond well to that, then you already probably know that if you have one of those kids, we need to do something different. We need to look deeper. I am really, really passionate about families and about relationships and about supporting people to get the skills that they need to have healthy relationships in their lives. And the skills and the tools that we're going to be talking about today also are applicable to every relationship. So this isn't just okay, in this one situation, when my child is 6, this will be helpful. And what I hear from the families that I work with is that across the lifespan, they come back to these skills and these tools over and over and over again. And I have the opportunity of working with a lot of these families across their parenting journey. I've got people that I started with when their kids were 4 who are now in college. I'm working with young adults. I spend all of my days pretty much steeped in this information. So I am really excited to be able to share more with you. So I am a mom and I have 2 sons. They are 19 and 24 now. And I'm also a stepmom to 2 grown children. And I'm married to my husband, Trey, who is a photographer. And yeah, he's a great guy. He took this picture here that's on the screen. But more than anything, I have personally experienced everything that I'm teaching here from the inside out, because I really got stuck myself as a parent. And I actually had to figure out how to repair my relationship with my son. And out of that, I wrote 3 parenting books. If you've seen them, Consciously Parenting is the first one. And then Creating Connection and Nurturing Connection is the third. And I have my 4th book, It's Never Too Late to Heal, which will be out this year. So I wanted to take just a couple minutes and just share a little bit about my story if you don't know me. Because really, my interest in relationships started when I was growing up and I was watching my parents struggle with my high need brothers, and they were reaching out for support, and the support that they got was really pretty terrible. And unfortunately, a lot of the support is pretty much the same support now, even though I was doing math the other day, it's been 35, 40, 45 years now since this information was the cutting edge information that they're still doing, they're still using, they're still applying. And it wasn't effective then, and it's not really effective now either. And so I watched that happen, watching my parents reach out for support and having support that really wasn't helpful at all. So when I became a parent, I'd gone to school for education, and then I went and got my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And I thought, all right, I'm going to become a parent. Piece of cake. I got this. And I totally didn't have it, not even a little bit. And my son really came in with a lot of special needs. He had a lot of digestive issues. There were a lot of challenges that happened for us pretty much off the bat. But I was steadfast, and I got this. I'm going to do this. And then when he was almost 4 years old, I had a baby who died at birth, and that shattered me. And it made it really hard for me to be in relationship with my son. And I didn't really understand how that impacted us. And so we needed to have a big repair, but it took me about 4 years before I found the people who could actually support me to move out of that situation so that I could be the parent that I was trying to be, that I wanted to be so desperately, but I needed to do some of my own work first. And that wasn't my first go around with therapy. I had been in therapy. I had really been working on my relationships, but I needed the right information and the right support to actually be able to shift the things in my family and my relationship with my son. And he's 24 now. So it's been, somehow time just keeps going. I don't quite understand, but he's 24 now, and we have a really, really good relationship. And I have my younger son, who I also have a really good relationship with. So I am grateful that they taught me so much about being in relationships. And, I'm grateful for my son, Jacob, and his short life and the gifts that I learned from that. And my two boys who have grown up with me as a very imperfect parent who has learned how to repair. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So don't put the bar at, I have to do this perfectly, or I'm not doing it perfectly, because you don't. And actually, I'm going to share with you that it's not a good relationship if it's perfect all the time. So I want you to take a moment and connect with yourself. This is the process. This is the basis of everything that we're going to be talking about. So take a moment and just feel your breath. If it is safe to do so and you are not driving, or you don't have small children that you are watching who you can't take your eyes off for just a moment right now. But if you can, closing your eyes or relaxing your gaze, or maybe looking out the window out at nature if you have access to that. And just take a moment and breathe. And feel your seat if you're sitting. Feel your feet if you're standing. Feeling Mother Earth beneath you. Feeling the breath. It's so important that we take the time to connect with ourselves. And we're going to be seeing this over and over again in what we're going to talk about today. And I invite you, as we're talking about these different ideas, apply the information to yourself first, and then shift to the other person. But start with yourself. Most of us haven't learned how to do that. So after you've connected with yourself, then connect with your environment. What's happening in your space? Maybe you've got little ones climbing on you. Maybe you're by yourself in the bathroom, where I know a lot of parents hang out. Maybe your kids are off doing things for the day and you have some time. But looking around and seeing what's happening right now, because there's a lot of our parenting, especially with transgenerational patterns, which we'll touch on just briefly today. There are things that take us out of present time. So allowing yourself to really be here and now. And then we can connect with someone else. But we start with ourselves, we go to the environment, and then we start to connect with somebody else. And we're going to be exploring that. If you can grab a journal or a piece of paper, or open a note in your phone, open a Word document so that you can jot some things down for yourself as you're listening, I would strongly encourage that. I'm going to be asking some questions as we go. And so there might be some things that you want to jot down for yourself so that you can think about them later as well. So I want to start by defining these ideas I'm going to be talking about quite a bit today: connected and disconnected, because I think we know what they are, but this is from my new book, It's Never Too Late to Heal. And I'm just going to read a little section of this for you. So just take a moment and see if you can connect with what I'm talking about. And maybe it's your relationship with your child. Maybe it's a different relationship that comes to mind. But connection in a relationship refers to where the energetic space between two people is relatively clear. It doesn't mean the relationship is without conflict, nor does it mean that things are perfect. Rather, that when challenges come up, they are addressed and the relationship feels good to both people, or good enough. When there is connection in a relationship, there will be eye contact, appropriate physical touch that feels good to both people, and the understanding of the humanity of the other versus the illusion that the other is or should be perfect or that we need to understand everything about the other, or even that we must agree with everything. When there is connection in a relationship, there is open communication, especially around feelings and the challenges that arise, and things are not left unspoken or unresolved. Generally, the feelings in the relationship are positive, happy, content, joyful, playful, but there is room for negative feelings like anger, sadness, and fear as well. Negative feelings don't tend to last because there is space for connection and acceptance of the whole person, not just parts of the person. Space is made for the needs of each person, both people in the relationship, and their needs are truly considered and respected. Whew. I didn't grow up having those things modeled. And I think most of us didn't. And so even just hearing that for a moment might bring up feelings for you. And again, this is not about doing this perfectly. This is the direction that we're wanting to move in. And it gives us some steps, some ideas of even what it is. We have to understand what it is we're trying to create, what this connected thing is before we can do it. And so disconnected, which I think we're probably more familiar with, but this is how I talk about it. When a relationship is disconnected, the energetic space is not clear. Rather, it is full of things that have not been communicated. Room isn't given for everyone's feelings, and behaviors often feel unsafe. One or both people feel misunderstood, hurt, angry, confused. Generally, the feelings in this relationship are negative, and the safe expression of real feelings and needs isn't possible without outside support, if at all. The source of the disconnection can be one or both people, stemming from the history of one or both of the individuals, or the history of the relationship, or both. So understanding connection, connected, and disconnection, disconnected, moved me out of the right or wrong paradigm and into a relational field. Instead of looking at my son's behavior as button pushing, as manipulative, as trying to make my life more difficult, maybe you relate to some of those, I began to see his behavior as a communication of the state of where he was and the state of our relationship. His negative behaviors became obvious communications of disconnection in our relationship. Instead of punishment, it became clear that he actually needed connection with me and that he didn't know how to move back into relationship with me or I him. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about connection and disconnection. So, all right. So how do you know your relationship is disconnected? I just touched on some of these, but I wanted to lay them out for you. So one or both people are avoiding contact. And contact can mean eye contact, especially when you're talking about young children, babies, but also with adults, teenagers, avoiding conversations, not allowing touch. With older kids, teens, young adults, it might look like a one-word answer to a question if there's an answer at all, using a screen to avoid eye contact. Think about that. Being too busy to engage or answer messages, texts, or phone calls. So people of any age can feel disconnected, even babies. And we can feel disconnected from our babies. So, and you've spent a lot of time in conflict, or it takes more than an hour to shift out of conflict when it happens. That's from the Gottman research on relationships. It should take about an hour to move out of a conflict if there's a lot of stickiness. And if it takes longer, then your relationship may need more support in that. So just taking a moment and looking at how it feels to look at the picture. I know for me, I just feel like a sinking feeling, like, oh, ugh, okay, how can we help you get back together again? But being inside of that, noticing what it feels like in your body, and then what it feels like in your body when you're connected. So my principle number one from my first book, Consciously Parenting, is all behavior is a communication. So that idea of, is something going on for you inside? Did you have a bad day? Did you sleep terribly? Are you worried about someone or something? Is something going on for the other person, for the child? Did they not sleep well? Have they not eaten? With young kids, we're always tracking those things, but they make a huge difference. Or is there something going on in your relationship? And as parents, it's really easy to blame the child's behavior for the disconnects that happen, but that isn't the whole story. And that's what we're going to be looking at now. So let's take a closer look. So if you have been hanging around with me for a while, you have undoubtedly heard about the Brain Stoplight. Like I said, I think I've been using the Brain Stoplight. Maybe it's been 12 or 13 years now. And this is based on the work of Dr. Bruce Perry, who is a neuroscientist and clinician in Texas. So we're going to be talking about the 3 regions of the brain, the thinking brain. And he said, literally take your hand and put it on your forehead. That's your thinking brain. Your feeling brain is if you take your hand and put it at the crown of your head. And then your survival brain is in the back. And so what really struck me when I was learning this information is that they are 3 distinct regions. And we tend to think in terms of thinking. Everything in our society is oriented towards thinking. That is the go-to. And if we can't think, and if we're not being logical, then what's the point? But understanding that there are 3 different brain states is really, really important for finding your way forward, especially when you're healing. So this is the triune brain, the 3 brains. So the human brain, the mammal brain, and the reptilian brain. So language, thought, verbal expression, language of emotion and feeling tones, and then the language of sensation and impulses. So we're going to be looking at some of these layers as we're going. So green light, thinking brain. This is where we have words, we explain things, we solve the problem. We have access to our full IQ, the ability to connect with others, to learn, and to make the best decisions that we possibly can. So little ones can be in this part of the brain, in the thinking brain, but it takes a lot of effort. I'm sure you've probably seen Dan Siegel's blowing their top. This is the thinking brain, and this is the brain stem. And little ones go back and forth between this a lot. It takes a lot of effort for them to use this part of their brain, but they can. And we say, oh my gosh, you're so smart. Wow, look at you. How did you figure that out? But they're primarily in their emotional brain until about age 7. But you can still see when they're on green and they're ready to connect. And this little one here is looking pretty calm and relaxed and kind of leaning into mom, between mom and dad. And notice how that feels in your body. So when we have a disconnection here, we can explain, we can reason, we can have a discussion. We can easily reconnect if both people are on green. And when we try to do this with other brain states, it doesn't work. And we try to do this a lot. So I want you to just take a moment and think about when you are in that place of, okay, I've got this and I can figure this out and I'm having a good day. What does it feel like in your body? And just taking a moment, and if there's a word that comes to mind, what does it feel like in your body? Because we're not just going to stay here, we're going to drop down a little bit. And if someone was looking at you, what would they see? And so this is, like looking at this woman here, her face is relaxed. She's in a relaxed posture. She's smiling. She's close to somebody else. So she's got space for coming into relationship. And if you look, even the dad here is turned towards his little one. Excuse me. And so there's like a connection that you can see, it's palpable. So when we see a green light, and this is part of the thing to help you, and this is one of the tools you're going to be taking with you today. When you see a green light, it means go. This is the space to have the conversation, explain something, brainstorm, problem solve. And this is the place that most of us try to use these techniques in other places and they don't work. So, but then thinking of your child, what do they look like when they're on green? How do you know? What do you see? And if anybody wants to write in the chat, you're welcome to. It just won't go to everybody, but I will get it. And I think I can see it as well. Oh, Karen asked, what time does this class end? It'll be about an hour. Welcome, Karen. Glad you're here. Okay, so yellow light, emotional brain. So this part of the brain, again, we're in a different region of the brain. So feelings, body connection, heart connection, emotional connection with each other, bonding, attachment. Adults lose access to about 25 IQ points here. So if your average IQ is 100, we're down about 25. This isn't the logical thinking part of the brain. So this is really the fork in the road where slowing down is really, really important. And little ones, again, are in this part of the brain primarily until about age 7. And this is where, if we can orient to safety, orient to somebody else, then we can come into connection. This is where some beautiful, beautiful things happen. But yellow light is one of those places when we look at a traffic light that, what do you do when you see yellow? And many people will speed up. And then sometimes we hit the red. But really, if you can slow down, this is the place where you can come into connection. And this is one of the biggest surprises for me in doing this work, is that when we have a disconnection on yellow, you can't use reasoning or logic to solve the problem. We need to connect on a feeling level. Most of us are really well versed at connecting on a cognitive level, but we're not as good at connecting on a feeling level. So we need to start with our own feelings. But the best repair and reconnection actually happens here on yellow. And that's really, really important. And that was the biggest surprise for me. So when you're on yellow, this is that place where it's kind of the in-between. You're not really on green. You're not logical in thinking about things. You might be really connected and just, you might feel a little softer. You might have some tears. Sometimes that happens in the emotional brain. You might feel a little bit more pulled in. Or for some people, you might feel a little bit more of a need to connect with some other people. And so what would someone see? This is like our early warning sign, that we're not on green. We might end up on red, which we'll get to in a second. But what might it feel like for you in your body? And what might it look like for someone else who is looking at you? What might they see? And for some people, it's the time where we pick up our phone and we're distracted. And we're, trying to soothe ourselves a little bit. That might be the place that if we soothe ourselves with food, we might start eating some food. We might start fiddling with our hair, or our leg might start moving. With little ones, we might start seeing like a little bit more movement, or we might see them pulling in and withdrawing a little bit more. Each child is different. Every person expresses this a little bit differently. So just holding curiosity about what that might look like for you, for your child. So, so as you think of your child, are there any words that come to mind? Yeah. Eye rolls. Yeah. All right. So then we move into our red light. So again, now we're in the back of the brain, this region here. It's our survival brain. It's responsible for, I'm sure you've heard recently, fight, flight, or freeze. Adults lose access to about 50 IQ points, and there's no neural activity happening here. Really, there's facial expressions that are being processed, and are these facial expressions dangerous? And if they're not dangerous, then maybe we'll settle down. But we're going to perceive things as less safe than we would if we were on green or we were on yellow even. These tend to be instinctive responses rather than thoughtful. If you can imagine, maybe you have one of these, or maybe you've experienced this, a toddler or a young child having a temper tantrum and throwing themselves on the floor, and their arms and legs are going all over the place. This is from that part of the brain. They're not thinking, oh, I will hit this thing, or I will hit you. It's coming from this other part of the brain that's not processing thought. So all information, Dr. Bruce Perry talks about this, all information comes in through the brain stem, and we're constantly assessing for safety. And so if something in our environment says that's not safe, whether it is a smell, a taste, something that we're touching, something that the way that someone is looking, the words, then we're going to react from this place as if we're not safe. And our actions are going to look like that. And it may not make logical sense. So unresolved trauma leads to an extra sensitive amygdala. And that's the difference between perception versus what's actually happening right now. There may not be real danger, but our bodies perceive danger. And so we act from that. And so the more trauma that's unresolved in your history that shows up, that will show up in your parenting. The more that your child has unresolved trauma, that's going to show up in the way that they behave. So when we see a red light, ideally, I think we all agree that we should probably stop. And in behavior, when a person is on red, whether that is us or whether that is our child, we need to stop. And this is really hard, because it's really hard once we've gotten into this red light to stop. But that's why identifying yellow is really, really important. When we can start recognizing, oh, I'm chewing on the inside of my lip. That's what I do when I'm starting to get dysregulated. What do I need? Or, oh, I'm noticing that my child is doing that thing. Oh, they're really going with that fidget spinner. And wow, what's going on with them? Let's check in. Can we connect? Is there something that we can do there to connect? All right. So when we have a disconnection on red, we are incapable of connecting in this moment, logically or emotionally. We need to focus on keeping everyone safe and helping to communicate that we are safe to the body. It's not you're safe, it's fine. That doesn't work. I mean, I've tried it. It doesn't work. But to be able to say, okay, wow, we're having a hard time here. Okay, I'm going to breathe. Can I put my hand on your shoulder? Because I can see you're really having a hard time right now. Would that feel okay for you right now? Yeah. When you're ready, you want to come give me a hug, so you're opening up the space for it's safe. We can downregulate. We can reconnect. So that question, what do I need to feel safe? And then what does it feel like for you when you're on red? What would someone else see if you were on red? I do an exercise with families where we have the whole family say, okay, let's talk about green, and we define green and what does it look like and what does it feel like. And I've had some great sessions with kids who are 4, 5, 6, 7, and we start with, okay, let's think about what mommy or daddy, or mommy or mummy, let's talk about what you see with them. And so we start with the child looking at that, and okay, they're on green. How do you know? What do you see? And some of the most interesting conversations. Oh, that's when daddy swings me around. That's when I know he's on green, and he looks at me and he hugs me. And then what does it look like when daddy's on yellow? And then they'll say, oh yeah, that's when he goes and he reads his newspaper. And I know that I should just tiptoe away and then I usually go and read too. And what does he look like on red? Ooh, yeah. Sometimes daddy gets a little bit loud. And so you can have those conversations, but starting with the parent, starting with your child, talking about what do they see for you. And then there's a little bit of space then for, can I tell you what I see when you're on green? Can I tell you what I notice? And so it's a really great tool to create some connection and conversation and communication around what's happening and what our internal states are. And I've got families that have been using these tools. My son, for a long time, he'd be like, stop talking to me. I'm on red. I just need a minute, just don't ask me to do the dishes when I'm on red. And it was really, really helpful to have that communication. Like, oh, there's something going on for you. I didn't realize. So I also want to say that we have an unrealistic expectation of regulation for ourselves and for our kids, no matter how old they are. I think that there's a part of us that really, really, really wants to just be, even and happy and good all the time. And so when those situations happen where it's not good and we're struggling and we're having a hard time, a lot of parents get really, really hard on themselves. Like I got several messages and conversations with clients about the holidays saying, I had these great expectations of what it was going to be like on Christmas morning, and it was a disaster. And I'm still, I should have done better. I don't know what's wrong with them. And there's really nothing wrong. You're human and you're having human responses and reactions to different things that are happening. And we don't have language to talk about that. We don't have space to actually understand the importance of repair and what that looks like, and that it's necessary for a healthy relationship. Because the biggest predictor of healthy relationships is not being perfect all the time and handling everything perfectly, but it's actually the ability to repair the disconnections. Can you come back into connection after disconnection? Can you do it? And can your child do it? Because they're going to mess up a lot. Is there space? Do they know how? Do they have the skills to come back into connection? Because did you know that you can't have a secure attachment relationship? And this is that one of my clients is calling it the unicorn, that unicorn state of, secure attachment, where you can't get there if everything is perfect all the time, whatever perfect means, because relationships are going to have disconnections and misunderstandings. We are going to get dysregulated, and so are our kids. But the biggest predictor is, can we repair it? So it actually means we need to mess up. Has anyone said that to you before? We need to mess up as parents. Things need to get messy sometimes so that we can repair the relationships. And learning to repair relationships is a critical skill that most people did not learn growing up, because our parents and grandparents probably didn't know how to do it either. Not that they were withholding, this incredible secret from us. They didn't know. But repairing disconnection is a skill that you can learn and you can teach your kids so that they don't have to go through the same thing. So when you learn to repair the everyday disconnections and misunderstandings, you really have a superpower. And when you learn how to do it, your kids also learn by example. How cool is that? So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today. So how do you repair the small disconnections? And I love this picture. This kid is just like, yeah, whatever. You don't get it. I'm having some feelings over here. But just notice the dad here, how he's leaned in. The kid isn't squirming away. He isn't leaving. He's there, but he's also not held. He could get up and go. But the dad is just being with him. This is what connecting on yellow can feel like. There's a little bit of a disconnection that's happened there. There's something going on for this kid. And for whatever reason, that look on that kid's face is not triggering to dad. Because that whole thing about, where is everybody? This is where it starts to come into play. So the things that don't work for repairing a relationship and coming back into connection: blaming the child without looking at your part in or your experience of the interaction. So notice I'm not saying take all the responsibility on. I'm saying that each person has a part here. And so we have to look at what belongs to us, because there's undoubtedly stuff that belongs to our kids, even babies, even on the day of birth, they come in with an experience that they just had in their body that they want to communicate to you. So even a baby has an experience that they need to show you. We have an experience. We need to make sure we make space for that. So a lot of families that I've talked to over the years pretend that nothing happens when there's a big disconnection or there are big feelings or something happens, and they just don't talk about it and they just hope that it just goes away. That doesn't work either. So waiting until the feelings subside and then moving on without saying anything about what happened, that doesn't work. Focusing only on the behaviors without keeping the relationship in mind also does not work. And leaving out the brain states and not responding in alignment with the state that we're in doesn't work either. And that's our state. Again, how are we feeling inside? What's happening for us? What do we need? This is not, let's just take care of this kid and disregard our own needs. This is what's happening for me. What's the story that's happening for me when this happens? What do I need? And then we can shift our attention to the child. What's going on for them? What do they need? So key ideas here. Relationship has two people. In this case, we're talking about a parent and a child. Each person has thoughts, feelings, and experiences that are conscious or unconscious that influence behaviors and interactions. So from those thoughts, feelings, and experience, we make up a story about what's happening in present time. That kid is trying to kill me. If we have to spend one more day struggling to get out the door, I don't know what I'm going to do. But they're obviously trying to do it to piss me off. So we make up a story about what's happening based on our experience, our thoughts, our feelings, and our past experiences. So these stories, that one was not connecting, but these stories can help us to feel more connected or more disconnected. And then we respond and it repeats, it continues the loop. When we can focus on the relationship rather than the behaviors of our kids, however old they are, we can start to shift things by learning to really listen to ourselves and our children to be fully in present time where the healing actually happens. So that's that, back to that, those opening slides where I said, start with yourself, then your environment, then connect with the other person or imagine what's going on for the other person. But we must make room for feelings, yellow light, our feelings and their feelings for our relationship to be healthy. All interactions and where we are on the stoplight are influenced by everything above that I've just shared. Healthy relationships know how to repair. So what are we striving towards with the repair? So this is the first thing is notice that there's a disconnection. So back to my definitions of disconnection from the beginning, we have to notice that there's no eye contact or, that something is happening. It might look like your toddler melting down or a bedtime disaster or your teenager not doing the dishes. But ask, is someone on yellow? Is someone on red? Did someone come home from school and they're really tired and cranky and they've got too much homework and then you ask them to do something, but they were already on yellow, red, but you didn't notice. So notice that there's a disconnection. When there's a disconnection, pause. There are very few situations in parenting that are actually emergencies. They do occasionally happen, but most of the time, that's not it. If your toddler is melting down, it feels like an emergency. It might put you on red, but it is really important to pause. Then name what just happened in its simplest form, dropping as much judgment as you can. That's the, oh, you're melting down again? That doesn't help. But if you say, take a breath and say, oh, it looks like you're really having a hard time right now. You're stating what you're seeing. Wow, you were trying to put this into the basket and it didn't make it. And right now you're really having a hard time. Drop the judgment. Meet yourself on yellow. So if you're on yellow with whatever happened, pick a situation, any situation that you are not regulated, and ask the questions. What just happened for you? How did it feel in your body? What's the story that you're telling yourself about it or about your child? This is all inside voice. These are not things that you're saying out loud to your child, but it's really important that you make room for your experience and your feelings. And if in the moment there is not enough space for that, put it on the shelf and come back to it later. Make a note that you want to come back and revisit that. That is one of the most powerful ways that we can shift these kinds of situations, is putting it on the shelf, coming back to it later and saying, wow, what was going on for me? What did I need? What did it remind me of? So again, then we're moving towards green. And hopefully at this point, you'll have space for that step. Is there another explanation for what's happening for your child? Again, now you're more in your thinking brain. Wonder what was happening for the other person. So starting with me, environment, am I safe? Now check in with your child. Then and only then come back into connection with your child with curiosity. Wow, I wonder what was happening. But by then, hopefully they're on green or at least yellow. Reconnection starts with you though. So we're modeling how to repair and come back into connection with our children. And if you didn't know how to do this yesterday, this morning, 2, 5, 10, 20 years ago, start now. Start now. So for repair to happen, you need to be ready or receptive for reconnection. So I remember when my son was younger, and I would still be stewing in all my feelings and all the muck that got stirred up for whatever he just did. And I would look over at him and he would be like, hi, I'm good, I'm fine. And it would piss me off because he regulated faster than I did. And so he was ready and I wasn't ready. And sometimes our kids aren't ready when we're ready. So we've got to know, okay, what do we do? So these are my tips. Are you or your child on red? Stop. This isn't the time to explain anything, to reason, to reconnect. The primary question here is, am I safe? What do you need to help both you and your child feel safe emotionally and physically? Sometimes there is a physical component, physical containment that can help a child feel safer. Hey, let's go into the other room where there aren't so many people around. Let's reconnect over here. Let's make the world a little smaller. That can really be helpful. Sometimes you need a break. You need to say, okay, I'm going to step away for a couple of minutes and I'm going to take care of myself so that I can come back and we can try again. It's important to name that because we want our kids to be able to do that. So the next thing, are you or your child on yellow? So if they're crying, it's a pretty good sign they're not on green. So slow down, be curious about what's happening for them. Make room for their feelings. If you're on yellow, do you need more support? So this might be, I need to call my friend and I need a regulated voice that I can listen to. This might be the time we have healing story circles as part of consciously parenting. People hop on a free healing story circle so that they can get some listening for themselves. But again, this is the time for listening, not for explaining. So, wow, you're having, big feelings are happening there. You had a really rough morning. Oh, I see the tears. Oh, it's hard sometimes. And refrain from jumping into, well, let me tell you about how to fix that. Or let me tell you about next time this happens. Just stay in the yellow with them. Again, reconnection on yellow is where the magic happens, but we have to slow down in order for that to happen. We have to slow down in order to connect with our kids in this space. But the deepest healing and reconnection happens on yellow, not on green. So again, throw the idea of staying on green out the window entirely, but really understand how important it is for our relationships. It is the glue. If you think about a time when you were really having a hard day and maybe there was someone who just sat with you and listened, you don't forget that. That is something that really creates a connection between you and someone else. And the same is true for our kids. We need to make sure we slow down. But if you've got a lot of big stuff going on for you, you might not have the space to do it. So you might need some listening so that you can do some listening. So then the last question, are you and your child back on green? Now's the time to have the conversation, to give information, to explain, to apologize for your part. If you didn't on yellow, sometimes I apologize on yellow. Sometimes it's really messy, but sometimes that is the best, most heartfelt thing that we can do. So that's what repair looks like. So what we do to repair is informed by our understanding of the disconnection. So you did blank. You left your room a mess. Doesn't leave room for reconnecting. So taking responsibility for your part is a good first step. And it can be really helpful when you're getting started to use a journal to write down your thoughts, your feelings, what it feels like in your body for this step. And this is the part of what belongs to you. Like, every time I wrote about this in my book, when my kids were fighting in the car, when they were little, it reminded me of being in the car with my brothers when they were little, and it was so hard for me. And so there was a lot of, wow, this feels the same, except, I couldn't do anything about it when I was little. But I could do something about it as an adult. But I needed to own that it was mine. It was part of my story. It was part of something that belongs to me. And before I could move on and actually do any repairing. So I strongly recommend having some place where you can write down your thoughts, or a friend that you can say, hey, I want to share this with you. I want to share what's coming up for me, the thoughts, the feelings that I'm having, and how it feels in my body. Can you just listen and maybe tell me what you're hearing without trying to solve it or fix it for me? This is what belongs to me. And when you have that clarity about what is yours, it makes it easier to see what might be belonging to your child. So some examples of repair. I didn't consider how that would feel for you or impact you, but now I can see. That's a really good one. I use that kind of idea a lot. But again, you can say the right words, but not really be in the right heart space, and it falls flat. So I'm giving you these examples, but I want you to hear you need to do a little bit of your own work first so that you can actually be in that place. Like, oh yeah, now that I've had some space for me and my experience, now I can see that impacted you in a way that I didn't foresee. And I'm sorry about that. I was feeling really emotional about what happened, and I didn't handle it the way I wanted to handle it. Can we try that again? And I didn't realize that I was on red. I've calmed down and now I can be with you. I'm sorry I couldn't earlier. I'm working on that. So look at what we're doing. What we're modeling for our kids is taking responsibility. And this is what it looks like as a full-grown healthy adult, or working towards healthy adult, to reconnect and repair and name what's needed. But really think about what you want your child to say back to you one day, and say that. Like, come up and be in that space with them, because they will feel that. And that's some of the best moments of my parenting have been those moments when my kids have messed up not handled something well, and then come back to me to say, wow, mom, I really didn't handle that well. I didn't really plan that out well. And I can see that that impacted you, and I'm really sorry. Yeah, let me try that over again. And they're the same things that I've said to them. And so I want you to hear that this is parenting for the long term. This is stuff that I'm still benefiting from with my kids now as young adults. So everyday disconnections. This is just a little game to kind of get you thinking. So who's on red? So your toddler won't let you get him dressed to leave, and you're probably rushed. So are you on green? Are you on yellow? Are you on red? And then where is your toddler? Because we've got to look at each person. So the toddler might be on yellow, and that situation might put you on red. So there might be a nighttime battle with your 5-year-old. You're tired, they're tired. You might both be on red right as you're beginning, because, oh my God, here we go again. The 9-year-old leaves a mess all over the house when he comes home from school again. And so, all right, where is the 9-year-old when he's coming home? Where are you thinking about the 9-year-old coming in and about to make a mess again? Your 15-year-old refuses to do the dishes after all I've done for you. How could you just not do this one thing I'm asking you to do? Again, where are you? Where are they? Where are you? Your 22-year-old isn't answering your text. I'm not asking that much. I just want her to message me, and let me know she's alive. She's off at college, whatever. Again, we don't know where she is, but what is that doing for you? And really paying attention to what's happening for you. What do you need? Is there a way that needs to be expressed? Not to the 22-year-old, but for yourself. For yourself, because we're modeling for our kids even when they're 22 and 24 and 30 and 50. So what does repair look like in real life? So I want to just talk briefly about these ages and stages here, because I know we've got people at lots and lots of different ages and stages. So for a toddler, for a baby, toddler, preschooler, for little ones, parent is going to take responsibility and say, wow, I can see that you're feeling this and you're having a rough day. And I can see that I missed that you were hungry and didn't get you food. So I'm going to take responsibility for that. And then I'm going to help you get regulated. 9-year-old, the parent guides the child, models, like, okay, I can see that when you come home from school every day, you're really dysregulated and your stuff just gets thrown everywhere. So I'm going to be here to guide you. And as you figure out what you need to do so that it works for everybody. So when you come in the door tomorrow, let's practice something different. 15-year-old, the parent is still the guide, but both are starting to take responsibility for their part. A 15-year-old may not willingly say, wow, I really messed that up, but they might if you've been modeling this for a little while. So 22-year-old child takes responsibility and the parent takes responsibility. Both are going to take responsibility equally by the time that you've got a young adult, ideally. So this is where we're going with this. So I wanted to just talk briefly about that. So I want you to take a moment and just think about where your relationship is right now with probably the child that brought you here. So we can look at that answer by asking how much time your relationship is in the green zone, calm and connected, the yellow zone, little dysregulated, some feelings, the relationship needs some nurturing, or the red zone, the relationship needs repair. We're spending a lot of time in survival. And if your relationship is frequently on red, or if it takes more than an hour to move out of red when you get there, you might need some more support. Relationships can be in survival when one person in the relationship is in survival. And that's really, really important, because I think a lot of parents take on a lot of responsibility. And while we need to be the one who is the adult, there's also another person who has had their own set of experiences coming in. And children who have unprocessed, difficult early experiences can do that, and it isn't your fault. Or if they've got a diagnosis, or they're high needs, or they've got a disability, or there's something else going on with those kids, there's more layers there, and it becomes more difficult. That's not you. What you can control is what's happening for you, your needs, having the space to connect with yourself, see what's going on for you, and then connecting with your child from that place the best you can. And when you can't, thank God there's repair. So I want to let you know about, I have a workshop coming up on February 4th. And this workshop is for you if you're spending more time in the yellow or red zones than you would prefer. And you want more ease and connection and less struggle, spending more time in the green zone and nurturing connection in the yellow. You don't need to be in survival to benefit from this workshop. If you're struggling even with just a couple of situations with a particular child, this workshop will help. We'll work on your own regulation strategies. We're going to be doing some multimedia type things. You'll have the opportunity to share either out loud, or you can choose to stay more contained, and you'll have some space to write and to process some things, or to draw, or to move your body, or whatever it is that feels good to you. But you will be able to modulate that in the environment. So we'll work on your own regulation strategies so you can model more for your child imperfectly. I'm no longer accepting one-on-one clients, so this is how you can work with me. It is a 3-hour workshop, and it will be on a Saturday. So if you join the workshop this week before the 22nd of January, I am offering 50% off, and there are some limited scholarships available. But this whole idea is to help you continue to explore the stories that you're feeling stuck in and to get support. And yes, it will be recorded. So you can sign up at nevertoolate2heal.com/workshop. And if you have questions, you can ask me about those as well. We're going to be exploring the arch of healing, which is one of the core concepts in my next book. Acknowledge, resource, connect, and heal. Connect to your stories. So I have a couple of minutes if you have any questions for me. If you have a particular situation that you're looking at that you are wanting you have some questions about, you can't chat them to everybody, but you can chat them to me. So if you've got something, or if you want to say, wow, my child is this many years old and this is what I'm struggling with, or if you have any questions. But in the meantime, what I would invite you to do is just take a moment and think about what it is that I shared with you today that really touched you, that really made an impact on you. All right, Patrice, I'm gonna try to see if I can allow you to talk. It says I can allow you to talk. All right, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Hi.
great. Hi. I think the one thing that stood out to me was just kind of being in tune and listening to my body. Because a lot of times in the moment of having that disconnect, whatever I do in that moment, sometimes just kind of listen to my body, but staying in that moment. Because sometimes I feel like I have to either react right then and there. I have to make sure the behavior is addressed or whatever the case may be with my child, but it kind of like staying in that moment. And also something that you said was very important was put it on the shelf, like come back to it, like kind of just stay there. So that was very, very important to me. So that was some great information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Where are you calling from, Patrice?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Indianapolis. My parents live in Brownsburg. How fun.
Oh, okay. Yes, not too far at all.
Yeah, well, welcome. Glad you made it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I think I lower your hand. All right. All right. Anybody else have anything that you want to share that really touched you about the information today? Any questions, anything that you want to share? All right, Ruth. Let's see. All right, Ruth. All right, do you have a question or comment, Ruth? Nope. Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything? I think there's like things that have been written down. The name of the book that I referenced that today's information was based on it's called It's Never Too Late to Heal, and it is in the process of being published right now. So I'll make sure that you get information about that when it is available. Ellen, hi, Ellen, glad you're here. So I would like to share this webinar with my daughter so that she might attend the workshop. Will that be possible? Yes. Just have her go ahead and just register. And then as soon as the recording is available, it will send it to her as well. Okay. And then Melissa, can you heal the connection with a child who has experienced trauma, or do you need to address the trauma first? You can absolutely heal the connection with a child who's experienced trauma. You don't have to address all of the trauma first, because trauma is actually relational. And so the idea is recognizing that there is trauma, recognizing that that child may be much more likely to go on red and might be much more quick to be in survival. And so that's not personal. That's not about you. That's not something that you're doing wrong. It just needs to be in an awareness that's another layer that you're dealing with, and that child might be much more likely to perceive things that you are doing as a threat. And so by being able to respond with a little bit more slowness, safety, then you're actually starting to work on the trauma. You're actually healing the trauma in your relationship by going slowly and by connecting in that way. Yeah. So let me know if that's helpful, Melissa, or if you have more questions, feel free to keep typing and I will actually look at the questions now. Okay, and Prescott, I've seen your stoplight example before, but my daughter just asked if I was in a traffic class. It made me think of a stoplight as a traffic control device for all of the house, not just one person at a time. So yeah, I use it as and schools often use it as, oh, you're in trouble. I'm going to put you on a red light. You're on red. And so there often needs to be a conversation about that with kids. Like, that's not the stoplight system that we're talking about here. This is a communication tool. I can say, this is where I am. I'm having a rough day. I'm on yellow right now. I'm having a hard time. And I might be a little bit quieter right now. And so really supporting the child, to your daughter in this case, to use that language, or maybe there's other words. I've had families that have actually taken something and put it on the wall, and like, where are we in the morning at breakfast? And they say, all right, I'm on red, and or I'm on green, or I'm on yellow. And then that's information and communication that can already be coming into the family. But you can also use a different system if the lights don't work. I like it because it's, for us as adults, it's okay, green is go, yellow is slow down, preferably, and then stop is red. Because when we're dysregulated, it's really hard to think. So it needs to be something that's really simple, because a lot of times we're not accessing this part of our brains. So it needs to be something that's super easy to remember. So, okay, green, go. Yellow, because we see it all the time in society. Anytime we leave the house, we're probably seeing traffic lights unless you live in a really rural area. So, you know, that's been helpful for me and my family and a lot of other people too. But I appreciate your comment, Prescott. All right, it looks like thank you. Glad, Melissa. The time of the workshop on Saturday the 4th is 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So New York time. Yeah. Just trying to keep us from crashing into each other. That also is a very, I like it. Yes, we need to stop now so we don't crash into each other. Yeah. Okay. So Ruth is back. I'm going to allow Ruth to talk. Let's see if it works this time. All right, Ruth, can you talk? Can we hear you? You are unmuted, but we do not hear you. Okay, that didn't work. All right. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, anything else from anybody? Yeah. All right. Just really grateful for you taking the time to come and be here. And if you take this back into your home later today, tomorrow, this week, send me a message and let me know what made an impact, what showed up for you when you tried to practice some of these things. I would love to hear the impact that it has and what's helpful. So thank you so much. There will be a recording. If you want to share it with anybody, just share the link, ask them to sign themselves up, and then we can make sure that they get any additional information. And yeah, just really appreciating you for being here. So thank you so much. And I will see you hopefully on the workshop. Would love for you to be there and to get to spend that time together, deepening into these ideas. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, Prescott. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody.